In this piece, I'm really dealing with these three parts, which are, they're sculpture. They're out here in space, and I've set them so that they are really pretty much coming out into the space, into the room, and with the wall surface. And the wall is, I have paint, a good bit of paint on this wall. The shadows are airbrush. I have larger shadows which have a stronger color, which has more, and even other parts of the wall where you'll see it's not just a white wall, or it somewhat appears as a white wall, even though I've ended up putting like yellow, and there's grays in there, there's colored pencil, there's graphite, so that it's like, for me, it was like a large wall that was a painting that I could paint on in relation to what I was painting on, these parts, so that it was, here is this sort of combination of somewhat of an active sculptural forms, which is then activating a wall, which to make this wall become the painting and the forms one piece. This is a piece, Airplayers VII, which is one of a series of pieces which I've been doing in the last couple of years, involving the use of air, either as a sound element or as in this piece where it is moving the forms so that the cast shadows and the painted shadows have this sort of interaction. So the forms themselves become alive, and that the wall is also activated and the changes with the color and light. Airplayers VII is a piece which had to be installed. It had to be installed by myself in the museum, because I was dealing with a wall with parts which I was bringing in, which then I was dealing with the wall became a painting. The part sculpture or movement activity was activating the wall color then relating and activating with the parts, so that all of this piece, it had to slowly go in a sort of involved way in this space. There was just no way that that the piece could be installed, or that I could really understand how the piece would be without being within this space. Okay, Airplayers VII is made of a linen paper, and then has plastic hoses which are wrapped in this linen paper and embedded in the form, and then the plastic hose then runs down to a little box. In this box there's a little squirrel cage blower which has a timing mechanism so that it is being cut off and on, and when the blower goes on, the air rushes out, extends the little hose, and then the blower turns off and the hose recoils. This gives it the linen paper form, a movement, and that is really what I wanted. I wanted the forms themselves to move, because with casting the shadows, I wanted the shadow on the wall to move, so that you would see this play between the airbrush shadow, the painted shadow, and the shadow which was cast, so that one would be still, the other was moving. So that's the reason I wanted besides this fact that the parts themselves, that sort of becoming alive with that sort of rhythm of, it's really a somewhat of a breathing rhythm. It has, I think for me, it relates to breathing, it relates to somewhat to the ocean. The piece also has a sort of landscape feel, so it somewhat like activates these parts as the blower goes off and on. The piece is like, it's like a piece of sculpture, it's like a painting. It's a combination of both of those for me. It has paint on the forms, it has paint on the wall. It is concerned with the transition and also the combining. So in one way what I'm doing is like separating the forms out here from the wall, but then I'm also in the same sort of way I'm bringing them together. So it's, it's a contradiction. Sound for me has always been very interesting, and the combination of sound with sculpture. In this piece, the sound is important, but the sound has a real function. And some other previous pieces, I've used synthesizer sound, and different sorts of sounds at different sorts of times with pieces. The installation is like doing a painting or doing a piece of sculpture in the place. You bring in parts laying on the floor, which without the placement, the color, the paint, they're really pretty dead. I mean, the concept behind the piece was this combination of combining these three forms, activating this space, and combining that with the wall, so that the light, the placement of the parts came first. And Airplayers VII is really part of a series. It's the seventh of a series of Airplayers for me, and each one has changed in a sort of very different sort of way, even though they all were involved with air. They've all had hoses and blowers. I think, a series is, when you're working with a series, it just continues to shift and change, so that I'm not exactly sure what the next Airplayer will be. It will just evolve out of this Airplayer.